Have you ever given someone all of your love only to realize it was never enough? Because the person you gave it to could never truly receive it? You remember how it started? The way they looked at you as if you were the missing piece they had been waiting for. The intensity, the passion, the overwhelming pull that made you believe you had finally found something rare. For a moment you felt chosen, seen, and valued in a way you had longed for your entire life. But slowly something shifted. What once felt like love began to feel like labor. No matter how much you gave, it never seemed to fill the void inside them. Your affection turned into obligation. Your presence turned into performance. And your love, something meant to be freely given, became something they demanded, consumed, and resented all at once. The most devastating part wasn't just their rejection, but the self-doubt it left behind. You began asking yourself questions that cut deep. Was it ever real? Did I do something wrong? Why was my love never enough? Carl Jung once wrote that what we reject in ourselves we project onto others. The narcissist cannot accept their own emptiness, so they hand it to you. They build an illusion where control masquerades as intimacy. They confuse possession with love, and in trying to love them, you end up carrying their shadow. This is why it hurt so deeply, because you weren't just rejected by a person. You were rejected by a mirror that never truly reflected you, and yet you stayed. Not because you were weak, but because you believed. You believed that if you just loved harder, gave more, sacrificed deeper, maybe one day they would finally see you. But all they ever saw was themselves. This is where the story begins, at the wound of giving your heart to someone who could never hold it. A narcissist does not fall in love, they fall into control. Think back to the beginning. The rush of attention, the flood of compliments, the sense that you had finally found someone who understood you. The texts at midnight, the grand promises, the way they spoke as if your futures were already intertwined, it felt like destiny. But in reality, it was design. This is the mask. What Jung called the persona. The carefully constructed performance of someone who knows exactly how to play the role of the perfect partner. They study your needs, your desires, your insecurities, and then mirror them back to you. It feels like connection, but it is imitation. It feels like love, but it is leverage. Real love grows slowly with patience and honesty. The narcissist's love arrives all at once, too much, too fast, too perfect. Because it isn't love at all. It's bait, and once you are hooked, the conditions appear. The warmth fades. The rules change. Suddenly, the affection you once received freely is rationed, measured, controlled. You don't notice it at first, because you're still chasing the high of those early days, still trying to get back to the person you thought you met. But that person never truly existed. What existed was a mask designed to hide what lay beneath: fear, emptiness, and hunger. This is the cruel paradox of loving a narcissist. They make you believe you are the one who failed, when in truth, the failure was built into the foundation. It was never about you not being enough. It was about them never being capable, and so you grieve, not just the loss of the relationship, but the loss of an illusion. You mourn a fantasy that was never real, but clarity is freedom. And the moment you see the mask for what it is, something inside begins to shift. You probably remember the moment you started questioning your own sanity. It wasn't sudden. It was subtle. A steady erosion of your certainty, one denial at a time. You remember the arguments where facts were twisted, your words were reinterpreted, your feelings dismissed. You remember how every time you tried to confront them, the story changed, and somehow you ended up apologizing for the very things they had done. This is gaslighting. But the most dangerous form of gaslighting doesn't happen in the relationship. It happens inside your own mind. At first, you resist. You know what you saw, you know what you felt, but over time, doubt creeps in. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe it really is my fault. And slowly, you stop trusting yourself. Carl Jung described this as the disintegration of the ego. When the shadow is projected onto you, reality becomes distorted. What was once clear becomes murky. You can no longer tell the difference between truth and illusion, between love and control. This is how you lose yourself. Not all at once, but piece by piece, you stop voicing your needs. You stop defending your perspective. You stop believing in your worth. Until one day you are living entirely in their version of reality, disconnected from your own. The tragedy is not just that they deceived you, it's that you began deceiving yourself. You silenced your own intuition. You swallowed your own pain. You carried their shadow as if it were your own reflection. But here's the truth. Your confusion was not weakness, it was survival. Your mind was trying to make sense of the impossible. You weren't crazy. You were conditioned, and the moment you recognize this, the fog begins to lift. You start to see the pattern. You start to reclaim your voice. And though it feels fragile at first, a seed of clarity begins to take root. Imagine giving and giving until one day you feel nothing. This is the breaking point. Not the screaming fights, not the tars, not even the betrayals. The real collapse happens in silence. It happens the day you wake up and realize you are empty. You have nothing left to give. The well has run dry. For the narcissist, this is the moment of terror. Their power depends on your emotional reaction. Your love, your anger, your tears, your attention. As long as you respond, they remain in control. But when you fall into indifference, their illusion crumbles. Carl Jung described this as the confrontation with the shadow. The moment when reality pierces through illusion, when the truth can no longer be denied. For you it feels like numbness. For them it feels like collapse. You didn't plan it. You didn't even choose it. It happened because survival demanded it. Your psyche, exhausted by the constant drain, finally shut the door. And in that silence a strange clarity appears. You begin to see them for what they are. Not a tragic soulmate, not a misunderstood genius, but a person trapped in their own emptiness, feeding off your light because they have none of their own. And suddenly, you realize something powerful. You are no longer afraid. The breaking point is not the end of you, it is the beginning. Because the moment you feel nothing, you are free to feel everything again. The narcissist doesn't miss you. They miss the reflection of themselves you once provided. This is the hardest truth to accept. You want to believe that somewhere deep down they cared, that when they watch you walk away, something inside them breaks. But what breaks isn't their heart, it's their mirror. Without you, the illusion fractures. They no longer have someone to project onto, someone to admire them, someone to carry the parts of themselves they refuse to face. They are left alone with what they fear most, the emptiness within. Carl Jung called this the confrontation with the void, the collapse of the false self when the shadow can no longer be denied. But unlike you, the narcissist does not integrate this shadow. They flee from it. They look for a new mirror, a new reflection, another person to carry their emptiness. This is why they seem to move on so quickly, why they can discard you and replace you in what feels like seconds. It isn't because you were unworthy. It's because they cannot face stillness. Stillness would mean seeing themselves, but even in their new reflections, the truth stalks them. They may find temporary relief in control, admiration, or power, but deep inside they know something has been lost. Not you, but what you gave, real love, and this is the irony. They destroy the very thing they crave most. They suffocate the one thing that could have saved them. And while they may never admit it out loud, they know in their quietest moments that they are the architects of their own loneliness. The narcissist's breaking point is not when you leave. It's when they finally realize that what they destroyed cannot be rebuilt. What if the person you thought you lost was never truly real? This question is painful at first, but it is also liberating. Because when you see it clearly, you realize you didn't lose a soulmate. You lost a mask. The survivor's awakening begins here, not by focusing on the narcissist, but by turning inward. Healing does not come from waiting for their apology or hoping for closure. Healing comes from reclaiming yourself. Carl Jung described individuation as the process of becoming whole, of integrating all the parts of ourselves we once abandoned. For survivors, this means reclaiming the pieces of identity you gave away. Your voice, your intuition, your needs, your boundaries. At first, this feels impossible. You are used to silence. You are used to bending. You are used to carrying someone else's shadow. But slowly you begin to notice small changes. You speak up where you once stayed quiet. You walk away where you once stayed. You choose yourself where you once sacrificed everything. And every small act of reclaiming yourself is a victory. Distance becomes your ally. Silence becomes your shield. The space that once felt unbearable begins to feel like oxygen. The awakening is not loud. It is steady. It is the slow rebuilding of trust not in others but in yourself. It is the realization that you do not need their validation to be whole. And in this awakening something powerful emerges: hope. Jung believed the greatest gift of suffering is the chance to meet our shadow. It sounds cruel to call suffering a gift. But when you look closely, you see the truth in it. Because without the pain, without the collapse, without the disintegration, you would have never seen what was hidden inside you all along. The relationship with the narcissist forced you to confront your deepest fears. Abandonment, rejection, unworthiness. It exposed the parts of you that longed for approval, that feared being alone, that questioned your value. And though it hurt, it also revealed where your true work lies. Integrating the shadow means facing these wounds not with shame, but with compassion. It means realizing that the need for love is not weakness but humanity, that your longing for connection was never the problem. The problem was giving it to someone who could not receive it. Through this process, you begin to see yourself differently, stronger, wiser, clearer. You no longer chase illusions because you know the cost. You no longer ignore red flags because you have lived the consequences. You carry scars, yes, but they are not signs of weakness. They are signs of survival. And in this survival, you find resilience. You find wisdom. You find the strength to stand in your own truth without apology. The shadow you met in them was also a mirror of the shadow within yourself. By confronting it, you have stepped closer to wholeness. The true revenge against the narcissist is not anger, it's indifference. For so long, your life revolved around them. Their moods dictated your peace. Their approval defined your worth. Their love, or the illusion of it, kept you tethered, but freedom does not come from fighting them. Freedom comes from no longer needing them. Indifference is not bitterness. It is not denial. It is the quiet realization that they no longer matter, that your life, your happiness, your identity exist beyond them. This is the final transformation, the circle closing. The pain that once consumed you becomes the fuel that frees you. You no longer search for answers in their silence. You no longer question your worth in their rejection. You no longer carry their shadow as your own, and in that freedom, you discover something you had forgotten: yourself. Carl Jung believed that true individuation is not the rejection of love, but the ability to love from a place of wholeness. When you reach indifference, you are not empty. You are finally full. You are no longer waiting to be chosen, because you have chosen yourself. The narcissist will keep searching, keep projecting, keep running from their shadow. But you walk away carrying the one thing they could never take: your capacity to heal, to grow, to love again. So remember, the breaking point was not the end of you. It was the beginning.